Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Köken. I'm one of the programmers of KIRIK. KIRIK is an online, at the moment, online initiative which does talks and programs about people and topics in the cracks. And we are hosting today Pavel Mozhar from Berlin. Pavel is a filmmaker originally from Belarus, but he's been based in Berlin since he was 10. So I think you call Berlin your first home, right, Pavel? Okay. And we were interested in his film quite a few months ago after we saw it in IDFA. But before the film was shown, I think it was premiered in Doc Leipzig, if I'm not mistaken. And soon it's going to travel to Oberhausen Short Film Festival and is taking part in the German competition there. This is a German production, right, Pavel?
Yes.
Okay, in the German competition there. And we were interested in the film as KIRIK because it is portraying systematic police violence that we here in this geography are very accustomed to. We will maybe talk about that. Of course, it's no laughing matter, but we see similarities between this film and many other geographies. And we didn't look at the film as a film coming from Belarus or you as coming from Belarus. So we think it's an international situation. In one of the interviews that you gave, which was a Belarusian newspaper, I think after IDFA, you have, people are still coming, so please admit. You have talked about a little bit about your research, and then after your research that you did online, you say these words. If the Google Translate is not mistaking me, you say something which I find very beautiful. You say, after my research about the interrogations and the testaments, you say a system emerged. Actually, this is a line from the film, right? A system emerges, a line from the film, from the English subtitles. So I first want to ask my first question, then we can open it to the floor. I want to understand a little bit more how you conducted your research, because as far as we know, you're not frequently going to Belarus. So you're in Berlin, and we see kind of a pandemic situation because we see the room. So I'm imagining that the filmmaker has done most of his research online, but I just want to hear it from you. How did you reach your sources? Were they available, accessible online? And did you have to do interviews with people by talking or something? How did that system finally emerge? So you started writing the script based on those testaments.
Okay. So first of all, hello to everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the interest in the film and in the topic. Yes, well, the research were the following. It's when this all event started, I had some Telegram channels I followed, and in this Telegram channels there were a huge amount of videos and reports from what is happening on the streets. So I just followed them, I think, like day and night. In the first days, I barely slept, and then went also on the streets here in Berlin with Belarusian people living here in Berlin protesting. We were like about 100, maybe maximum 200 people on the weekend. And obviously, I read a lot of news. I watched the Russian channel Rain TV or like Dozhd TV, which is the only one the only one free channel, which is closed right now, but was open back then. And of course, I had a lot of information what was happening there. But first reports from what happened to the people in these prisons came only after, I don't know, like 1 or 2 weeks. And then I read first reports and thought to myself, like, okay, well, this is maybe a bit exaggerated. Maybe it's like one person or two persons which what happened to them. Of course, I was a bit skeptical. I thought, like, okay, maybe someone is trying to, you know, to exaggerate on things. You never know. Information is a very, you know, like a very sensitive field. But what happened then is that one organization from Belarus, human rights organization, Vyasna, or Spring 96, the only one which is based in Poland, they started to publish protocols with victims of these events, because they said, we want to document these crimes, or we do not want that these crimes disappear. Because what the official state or what the dictator was saying is that there are no crimes. All this people who are beaten up, these are all fake. You know, this is all fakes by propaganda, Western propaganda, and so on. They're all paid. So and there was also how do you say, a group of journalists, a pool of journalists, also like living in Russia and in other post-Soviet republics, who said, okay, we also want to document this, and we want to make a web page, August 2020, and on this web page we only have protocols from the victims. And then I started reading them, and you know, when these protocols would be like, okay, I've been caught up on the street, arrested by the police, then we were brought to the police station, I don't know, maybe beaten a bit, we spent there 20 hours, and then we were released. I would not make a film out of it. I would think, okay, it's hard, it's dramatic, but okay, so what, it happens, like, I read a lot of that. But the point is, when I started reading these protocols, they were actually kind of all the same. So the beginning was different and the end was different. How people got arrested and how what they are thinking about the whole thing. But in the middle, like 80% of the interviews were actually sounding like one big interview, because the structure was really like what you seen in the film. This was, you know, like a production line, you know, like an assembling line of something. And then I thought, like, okay, this cannot be true, because it's like someone had an idea, like very precise idea what to do with the demonstrators, and not only in the day during the demonstrations, but already before that. So it was like what you said, like the system emerged before my eyes. Like somebody went to an office, sit on a table, maybe with some advisors, or I don't know, the officers from the secret police and everything. And they said, okay, guys, how are we gonna break the demonstrators in the first 3 days so roughly that they don't want to go in the street never again? How are we gonna show them who is the boss here in the country, you know? And a lot of these tactics, what they used later, as we did some castings with the instructor, as we were looking for the instructor, we were looking among trainers, among, how do you say it, martial arts trainers.
Yeah.
And a lot of these trainers are also working for film as stuntmen. And they are teaching some special forces. And what they told me, most of them said, like, okay, a lot of these tactics are like anti-terror tactics, you know. This is what you use for like against terrorists or something, to break someone. So at latest there, I knew, okay, this is not only like, I don't know, my idea, but this is like a systematical approach, and an approach from a textbook, if you want to say it like this.
Which you call Handbook.
Which I called Handbook, exactly. Yeah. So this is how the research went. And yes, we read 200 interviews, structured them. I put like the most interesting stations, so to speak, from this line. And by reading these interviews, I already took sentences from each one. And in the end, I had a huge script play, like I don't know how many pages, with a lot of different sentences for one station. And then together with a producer, we decided, okay, which sentence sounds best, because we didn't want to mix up sentences. We didn't want to edit anything. We said, we decided.
We lost your voice, Pavel.
You heard?
Okay, now you're back. Yeah, but maybe the last sentence you can repeat once more.
Yeah. So because we said we don't want to change the sentences itself, like we don't want to change, we don't want to edit the sentences of the victims or any text, but we want to take the best sentence or the best passage which describes this station the best. So for example, like kneeling on your knees or standing on your knees with hands back. We had like, I don't know, 20 alternatives, and then we decided for one.
And all this time, all this time, there was the pandemic, and you were mostly in that room, which we see at the beginning.
Yes, exactly like it. So maybe taking one step back. What you said to the interviews, in the very beginning, I had a huge desire to go to Minsk, to pack my stuff and to go to Minsk and to take interviews with to find the victims and to take interviews with for myself. But then when I thought about it more and more, there were several reasons against it. First, why should I go there and talk to these people again about these traumatic events if they already told it, very detailed to these human rights organizations, and to go there and to ask actually pretty same questions. Maybe I would be more detailed, I don't know, but they would say, hey, read it online, please, like, not talk to me about, like, in my imagination. Second, of course, the coronavirus were pretty harsh in Minsk, and to go there and to meet so many people, like, and to be a transmitter or something. And third thing is, of course, if the officials would find out I'm trying to make a film or anything, I wouldn't come out of the country with a film.
Okay. That's what I also wanted to ask. What's your relationships to Belarus? But you already answered that question. I want to ask again a part of the same question. You again mentioned in an interview by a German playwright, Peter Weiss, his play Ermittlung, which is the investigation. And just before everybody came, we talked about Shoah, the film by Claude Lanzmann. And were these inspirations in your head even before you started thinking about the film, or did you go to them after you decided to make this film?
I went to them after I decided to make a film, especially the investigation by Peter Weiss. A friend of mine recommended it to me, so I read it and was fascinated by. It's actually pretty. Yeah, it's a screenplay, a very thin book, maybe like a very small book, and it's based on the testimonies of the victims. From the concentration camps.
In Auschwitz or another concentration camp?
I think it's Auschwitz, and then maybe Sachsenhausen. So that's like few of them. It's not only not only on one. focused on one. And then it's a dialogue between SS officers and the victims, you know, like, and the judge is reading the testimonies of the victims, and then the SS officers can say something to that. And it was a most toughest book to read for me, because I put it away several times. I read it like, it's like a book you can read in an evening, but I read it like for 3 weeks or something. Because after 10 pages, you think like, okay, I had really enough. Because what they did to people and to, I don't know, little children, they're reading about this doctors who did some tests with humans, and I thought like, okay, I don't want Handbook to be like this. Like, I don't want that audience would see this film and think after 10 minutes like, okay, I don't want to see it anymore, and I don't want to, like, I want to protect myself from that emotionally. The idea was more not to try, let's say this, not to try to force the audience to eat the cake, but to leave the cake on the table and to say like, okay, look at it, and maybe, yeah, if you want, try something of it or think about it, but yeah, not to try to show how terrible it was, because I think it's even not possible with fiction to show how terrible it was. Because when I was reading the interviews, you know, it's like, it's the people write about there were blood on the floors and blood on the walls when they went out of the cells. There were men, for example, like in 3 protocols I read, there were men, special police hold the electroshocker to their testicles and said like, if you don't tell us who pays you, yeah, we're gonna like, yeah, kill you. Or and there were even some rape cases, I think 2 or 3. But I thought, no, we don't want this small cases. We want the systematic stuff, and we want to make it as systematic as possible, as forensic as possible, maybe, to put like this.
Okay.
It shouldn't be like a emotional film in the sense of what's the word for it? Hysteric. It shouldn't be hysteric. I think this is important, because in my idea, it was like, it should be a forensic investigation what this system and this dictator has done, and that we know what he's done, and then journalists and human rights organizations know what he has done, and one day, hopefully, when his power will end, there will be a judgment day, and he will be, you know, faced with his crimes. So this was kind of idea. I mean, of course, this film won't be an evidence to anything, but the idea, like, to have a forensic.
But more and more artworks are becoming used as evidence in court cases. We have examples in Turkey in the court case against Osman Kavala as well. A documentary film is as a subject of like it's part of the court. So you never know. Maybe in the future this book could be this not Handbook. The film could be referred to as an evidence, because you're actually compiling information. Accurate or not, I mean, it's of course a more abstract artwork, but there might be valuable information for people in it, either to take reference form or give as a historical fact. I want to ask a last question before I open the discussion to the floor. Oh, by the way, I also made you co-host in case you want to show us anything on your screen. I want to combine 2 questions, like the choice of your bedroom, which you explained that you were there most of the time because of the pandemic. It shows also the artist's life. You know, we see your bed, we see your heater, and then we see the same with the setting of the film. And also, I want to ask you about how you shot the film and how you made the choreography. Who was instructing? So if you could open that a bit, would be great. Maybe also with some visual support to us.
Yeah. Well, the very first idea, the very first like impulse was maybe to shoot it in the studio. The whole thing, like, so I was sitting in the room reading this protocols, and then, for example, when they were saying we were 20 people, oh no, 50 people rather, in a room like 4x5, and then I measured my room and thought like, okay, this is like, I have to imagine now 50 people in my room for 2 days, for example. Okay, and then I kept reading. I had a very, very, how do you say, shy idea of maybe making it in my room, but I was like thinking, no, don't think about that. It's maybe not professional enough. And then I was thinking about the studio. But then I talked to the DOP, to Jonas, and he was actually at the beginning very skeptical about the whole project. He was like, I don't know, maybe you do a theater play out of it. If you want to do it in a studio, maybe like, I don't know, maybe I don't think it's a film. I don't imagine it, and blah. It's like static, and then you have only one room, and blah. And then I told him, I can remember it. We went for a walk, and with the studio it was complicated. And then I said, Jonas, well, I have an idea, but you gotta tell me if it makes sense or it's bullshit. What if we shoot it in my room? And then he said, to be honest, I think it's a great idea, because if we do it in the studio first, it's dangerous because you have a lot of possibilities regarding lights and camera movements and everything, and to make this film too aesthetical, which is kind of not ethical in this for this topic. And second, if we do it in your room, it has much more personal approach and everything. And then we measured the room. Then he came with a camera. We moved out a bit the furniture, looked, okay, how many space do we have? I mean, I can show some pictures. And
yes, please, that would be great, because it's not a very big room. We're curious about where the camera was, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Wait a second.
Sure.
I don't know. Problem. Yeah. Okay. So we started. So this was very, very first, like with the DP. So like trying to measure me, like how it looks when I'm standing, or when a protagonist is standing, where he's trying to see, okay, what's the top shot? Is it possible? So this was the very beginning when Jonas came by with a photo camera, trying just to get a feeling for this room. Okay, I mean, I can go on forever, but yeah, just to see the different sides of a room, if it's possible from the distance with the camera, or how we can, different light maybe, and so on. And then we tried to get, but the window was a problem. I mean, how do you shoot if the window is open? Then you have different light. We need a constant light. So we tried to cover it with
foil.
With foil. Then we tried it like this. Then the producer came by. This is a producer, Kolya, and Jonas is a cinematographer. And then we thought like, okay, how it would, do we have enough space when the instructor is there, and the proband, and how we do it. And then, or something like this, like, should he stand more next to the camera? And yeah, there he had a lot of fun with beating me.
With you on the floor.
Yeah, on the floor. And
so you're testing also movements here, or is it just somebody standing as the costume?
No, only like the perspective, how far, do we have enough space, like if he stands to the camera, do we need to see his feet, or I don't know, maybe like this, like what is the perspective, how do we see the hands, how do we show it like this? Or for example, I can show one picture, like this. Should we go to a perspective like this, or would it be too intrinsic, like, or for example,
this was maybe something you didn't want before you talked about it, right? Like exactly, the device example.
So should we have a picture like this, for example? and that it make clear to us, no, we don't want to be so close to the to this probands or to this dummies of the instruction videos. And then in the next step we took out the furniture, and then because we needed the one, we realized that black is wrong, the black color of the file, so we took a gray. And then we tried to see, okay, how many space is there? Is it possible? Is a second wall possible, for example? Wait a second, picture here. Yeah, here. Like, because we cannot only use the whole time the window.
Okay.
We should also use a different wall. So do we have enough space for the camera?
And who made the choreography? I mean, we know that it's in the testaments that they hit the knees, but did somebody choreograph the actor's movement? Like a movement coach?
Not really. I did it like myself. It's just what I read and how I imagined that and how they would do it. Yes. And then during the casting, of course, we talked about it and said, okay, I watched some training videos, you know, from how do you say it? This first help or first aid videos where people are helping someone if he needs to breathe or something, and then how very professional we should do it, and then so this was that.
And then the camera comes in, no?
Exactly, and then so wait a second, I can check. Well, yeah, here. I mean, we had even ideas like this, but just to try something out, you know. So we spend a lot of time in this room. So, but then maybe I can show you also some moods, like before the test, where the visuals journey started. It was some films from Harun Farokhi. So, for example, like I had something like this in mind, and Dogville, of course, and then some art stuff. Yeah, something like this, and animations also. For example, I had the idea.
This is also Harun Farokhi.
This is also Harun Farokhi, exactly, and I thought about this kind of very simple industrial animations, and then it's we took it from there to something like this. You know, it's from the how do you say it, flight, and this is how I imagined people would look like, these models of people, but we didn't need them. And also, for example, the room, if you see this animation of the room, I thought about textbooks, you know, like how an architect would create this room, and the people inside there. The people are like symbols, figures. They have no identity. They are like, and the transporter, this is the official from a company, from a Russian company, Look Us. They have this transporter animation, so we just copied them actually.
But this is not the same exact truck that OMON is using, the riot police is using in Minsk.
Well, it's pretty the same. It's like in a Russia. This is a Russian production, Russian produced truck, but the OMON, from the Belarusian police is pretty much the same. So not exactly, but the idea is the same. Like it's really like a truck. It's really with seats above, and and this is how it. This is a making of photos. How we try to transform it. Maybe I make it big. Wait a second. Oh, now he opens it. Okay, these are videos. That's why.
Yeah, first the photograph.
So yeah, this is how we started. We put the lights on a ceiling. We covered the window first. This is Friederike. She was doing production design, and Jonas DOP. And we covered the window first with a black foil from the outside and with gray foil from the inside, so no lights came in. And then we put the lights on the ceiling. So we had a top light, a general top light, always from above, and then here from the side. And then we covered the floor with a gray, not foil, but I don't know how it's called. Yes, so this was our setup, and then we had a rehearsal with a special. There was the actors. These were actually all non-professional actors. So like all the probands were Russians, and they are actually also they were activists in Russia, and so I was looking for people who maybe would have some personal interest in this topic, and he is a professional martial arts trainer and also had a huge shooting experience as a stuntman and everything.
Does he appear in the film? Is he the guy who beats the puppet?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I see. Well, this is very interesting to see this pictures, and I think now we can open it to the floor to open this to other perspectives. Do you have any questions? You can either raise your hand or write to us on the chat. Any questions to Pavel?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah.
Oh, the blackboard. The blackboard comes from the testimonies as well, or is it your intervention?
That was our idea to if it's a handbook, if it's a tutorial video, then maybe we need a blackboard where we write how the people were marked by the police.
Okay.
And for these guys, for these trainers, it costs a lot to learn writing in Kyrillic alphabet. So actually, I have to say I wrote most of it, and then they just wrote some letters because it was very difficult for them.
Okay. Thanks a lot. This is very useful for us to understand more also how it was made. So I would like to ask if anybody has a question, or did somebody write on the chat? You can just speak up, I guess.
Yeah, I would have a question if it's okay.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pavel, for sharing the film, which was a very hard watch, of course, but also very important. And as Koken already said, it resonates in quite probably different and similar ways when you view it from a place like Turkey as well. I was wondering, I was very taken by a lot of things that you were saying, so I have a ton of questions, but I'd like to start with one, because you were talking about how, if I understood you correctly, how the martial arts trainers recognize this kind of violence as being rooted in anti-terrorism measures, but notably in your models, you seem to have gone back to concentration camp technologies of violence. I was just wondering, where do you see the connection? Why was that important to you? Because I'm sure and other more closer associations would be the kind of protocols we know from Guantanamo Bay, which in turn also have their precedent, of course, in the anti-terrorism not legislations, but human rights violations and ways of enacting violence in the 70s. So would you mind talking a little bit about how you made the connections and what was important to you there?
Yeah, indeed, it's a good question because, you know, the thing is, I was not very much looking for the references on a site of how to structure the film or how to write the play. I was looking for more for the for visual references. Okay, how are we gonna do it? Because the dramaturgy of the film was very clear to me. And then Shoah was the first film which I actually wanted to see for a long time. And then I thought, like, okay, let's watch it. And of course, I was fascinated by. I mean, I knew about the film and also read a lot on the topic. And what I was fascinated about is that Auschwitz was completely built from scratch and designed by architects and engineers who went to work with white shirt and tie, and, you know, draw. Or maybe no, I would say it different. The idea how it came up, it comes to my mind. How to see Shoah was actually a documentary about the advisor from Donald Trump, and I forget his name, Steve
Bannon.
Bannon, exactly. And there is one scene where Steve Bannon talks about Auschwitz and says, like, okay, if you see it, it's like German engineering in perfection. You know, you have this railway and then this and then the barracks, and somebody thought about it. I don't know how he's judging it or whatever, but I thought, like, okay, maybe I have to see Shoah to see what he means. And then this is the most scary part, the most horrifying part, that there are people, they go to work like normally with coffee and everything, and they talk and they have like say lunch, and then they come back to work and think like, okay, this would be the barrack for our like prisoners, and here the train will come in, and then they will walk here, and they would sleep in beds 92 meters, and that and that and that, and the same system. It's not. It's important not to confuse, because the intention of Nazi Germany was completely different, and the scale was completely different. I don't want to compare these both things, but the idea that someone sits there and systematically thinks about how we're gonna break people, how we're gonna put them in the cells, how much water we would give them, how we're gonna make it harder for them with a bank of water so they can breathe. In which position would we put them so they're gonna break or feel bad? I mean, this is a job of these officers, like a daily job. And you're completely right. Guantanamo is another good example. But somehow, I don't know. It's interesting that you say it, but it didn't came to my mind, this example. But in this story of Holocaust, I was thinking, like, there is something in human nature, you know, which, I don't know, which is extremely frightening of what we are capable of, you know. And I also wanted the audience to be kind of part of this learning video, because what I didn't want is that people would sit there in a cinema and think, okay, this happens only in Belarus, you know, like people in Western Europe would think like, okay, well, this happens there in Belarus somewhere, but we here in Germany, for example, we live in a democracy, and think like this, what wouldn't happen in our police system, or I don't know. So that's why I wanted this special officer to watch, to look into the eyes of the audience. I don't know, did I answer the question, or
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really, it's really great that you're giving us all these insights into the process, also thinking about it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Does anybody else have a question? You can also write your questions if you prefer to the chat. So maybe I can ask something. We are, some of us are filmmakers or artists and scholars, and we've been, if not detained or taken to prison, we've been in similar situations, and then we produce works that could be deemed as dangerous or controversial by the state. I'm assuming that this film is not going to be shown in Belarus, but do you have a strategy to protect yourself so that you are not showing the film in certain cases, or you're not going to Belarus? I was just curious because one of the reasons we're doing this discussions is kind of strengthen the solidarity of people like you and us who are going to be in similar situations, if not now, later.
It's interesting that you're asking, because the producer told me, hey, we should ask everyone from the team if they want to publish their names from this in the credits, their real names, or if they want to publish their, I don't know, some pseudonyms or anything. And I thought, like, in the beginning, I was thinking, like, okay, maybe it's too much, but of course, then I agreed and I said, like, okay, sure, let's ask everybody. And there were some people who changed the names, which is completely understandable. And for me, it was clear already before the film, after these events happened, and even before I was having an idea of making the film, for me it was clear, I don't want to go back to Minsk right now, because especially after, like, maybe in the first days, I was thinking, like, okay, I could go there for the demonstration and everything. But then when you see, okay, it's a hopeless situation, and it's one brutal dictator who is sitting there in power, and he has all the power he just wants. It had a feeling of visiting a killer in his home, and I was thinking, like, it was hard to imagine to go there and trying to, I don't know, have some good time or anything, or to visit this country. It was not possible, because I was, in the past, I was going to Minsk, like, rather for holidays, to see friends, everyone. But now it was, maybe I cannot describe it in the right way, but so after the film, I was thinking, like, okay, now I won't go anyway, and now with this, because I still have a Belarusian passport, and
only, or both?
I have both, but if I'm in Belarus, I'm treated like a Belarusian citizen. My German passport has no influence. So, and when people get arrested for Facebook commentaries, there are, like, tons of cases where you send a wrong commentary, and then special police comes to you and you get arrested for 30 days or maybe 60 days, just to teach you a lesson. You can imagine what they would do with I don't know, film director who already had some interviews with Belarusian journalists, which are published. So they have it on a track. My parents worry a bit because they want to go to Belarus. I mean, not now when during the war, but we're talking permanently about it. It's not easy, but for me, Belarus is now kind of closed. Yeah, as long as he remains in power. and Russia too also.
This is interesting because here in Istanbul, we are greeting more and more Russian and Belarusian, and also from Ukraine, artists who are coming and saying similar things. They don't want to go back until the people in power are gone. Does anybody have other questions from the group?
Because maybe I would like
Yes,
to add,
sure, please go ahead.
very shortly to that. Because of course now when these horrible events in Ukraine take place, and a lot of people, and I can understand them, and some Ukrainian friends or people I know are saying like, hey, why don't people in Russia go on the street, take it on the street, protest and overthrow the government, how we did it on Maidan and everything? Or why didn't Belarusians go on the street and protest? Or why don't you artists go, I don't know, back and fight for freedom in your country, or fight for Ukraine? You know, it's kind of easy to compare it with Yanukovych and with Ukraine, because Putin is not Yanukovych and Lukashenko is not Yanukovych. You know, they are in power. Lukashenko is in power for 26 years. Putin is for 22 years. They have the whole system, you know, it's like one huge block, and I think there is not only one general from the army who is turning the backs on them. And if there would be huge protests, they would just allow the army to shoot, you know, they would do everything, you know, to protect the regimes. So it's a bit too late now. And actually this film, I was thinking about why it was like, for me, important to show it also in the West, because, you know, in Eastern European countries or in post-Soviet republics, people know about how brutal the special police is, even though these events in August 2020 were shocking to a lot of them. But they know it. But I think people in the West often take democracy for granted and then think like, okay, something like this can happen. But the problem is when when the system of a state comes so far that they do things like this with people in a prison, then it's too late. Then it's too late, because then demonstrators, protests, I think they cannot decide the future, because the dictator is too strong. And
maybe I can ask, well, a little bit technical, but also political question. From the film, some parts of the film about how the police is conducting their, you know, actions. For example, I saw a big similarity between Turkey, the Turkish police accusing people like, where did you get the money from? Who forced you to come to the streets? Are you are you as if you're a professional demonstrator? And the national anthem, which is very interesting, because we are hearing a lot of reports like people are being forced to recite or sing the national anthem, especially in the Kurdish regions. Like, if you don't sing it properly, you're not a proper Turk. Or so I saw a lot of similarities, and between a place I've been myself for many years, Israel, about the video interrogations. I saw a lot of similarities with the Shin Bet officers, or the, you know, Israeli Defense Forces in Palestine. I'm just wondering, since the war has started, the international, let's say, community has understood more and more how close Belarus and Russia are, and they're obviously sharing a lot of intelligence. So I was just wondering if this handbook is the same in Russia. Do you know anything about this?
I don't know. I have no very special idea what the Russian police is doing, but there were some testimonies when people, or let's put it this way, when people went on the street, for example, after the publication of Putin's after Alexei Navalny was poisoned and then put into prison after he came back from Germany. A lot of people also went on the street in Russia and were put into prison. And then I read some testimonies from them, and they were sounding kind of similar. For example, what they did, I mean, they didn't do, no, that's important. They didn't do such a harsh stuff. There was not such a hard stuff like going on the knees and standing on the knees for 6 hours, or like completely beating with blood and everything. But what they did is, for example, they didn't give people toothbrush, no, how do you call it?
Comb.
To brush your hair, or not to brush, and they put the light on. They left the light on in a cell for the whole time. They took away the mattresses from the beds, so people sleep only on metal bunks. So stuff like this, stuff like where you don't see traces of torture, but and people said like after 2 days you feel like bump, you feel like you don't have a feeling of dignity at all. You don't have a meaning of a time, because you only see the light and you never see the windows are covered, and it's kind of, for most of people who are for the first time, it's kind of enough, so to speak. But to come back to the question, I think yes, I think it's kind of the same. For example, in Amsterdam, one woman came to me from Russia and said like, what I saw just right now on a screen, what happened in Belarus, this will happen in Russia in 2024 after the next election of Putin. So, and actually a lot of people from Russia, like journalists, intellectuals, before the war, they were asking themselves, will this what happened to Belarus in 2020, will this happen to us in Russia? Like same protests, same brutality, same harshness, living immigration and everything. But now the events changed, and yes.
Thank you. We can have a last question from the audience if you have.
Yeah.
Maybe I can pitch in since we.
Yes, please go ahead. Sure. Dimitri, go ahead.
I'm Dimitri from Russia, currently in Istanbul with my wife. We've been here for about 2 weeks, and we left quite quickly after the war started. But I'd like to sort of develop on that idea why there's this different treatment of protesters taken in custody by the Russian police. That's my observation also. I think the reason for it is that the Russian protest movement is much more demoralized currently, and the government is really not that afraid of them. I mean, they're just doing the necessary thing. They don't do extra. They don't go. They don't apply unnecessary force. So they consider this kind of treatment is enough, and there's no reason to go overboard with it. But if things get harder in terms of protests, which is no idea if it's likely or unlikely, it may happen, it may not happen, but the government will respond, not in kind, but they will what they love the word asymmetrical response. So they will respond by applying slightly more violence and force than needed, just to add that intimidation factor into it. And in the past, that really has been enough. That slightly more force. In Belarus, they applied way more force to crush the protests, because I assume the threat was estimated to be a bigger threat to the regime. And comparatively, if you compare the size of the population in Minsk and the number of people who protested, or in Belarus in general, that was a much bigger threat to the regime. In the resistance in Russia, it's an interesting case. It's been going in waves. The numbers have been fluctuating, and it's a very complicated history of protests. It was during the zeros. It was like a really small group of people protesting it on the 31st of every 2 months, I guess, of the first article of the constitution, which is the freedom of assembly. It was a very small group protesting in the central Moscow, and the police just rounded them all up and sent them into custody. Then big protests broke out in 2011 due to the stolen, what people consider to be stolen elections in the parliament. These were in the hundreds, different assessments, 100 up to 150,000 strong protests in Moscow. But this was already crushed with that tiny bit of extra violence at the Bolotnaya Square, and then later during the day after the inauguration of Putin for his third term. I was taken and arrested by the police. I remember how it happened. Basically, I was filming just from my cell phone. I was filming what was happening in that area of Moscow, Chistые Prudy, and I had never been arrested before. They came from behind and basically took me by the hand. They did this kind of thing from some kind of martial arts thing where they can fold you in two, and then they drag you into the police car. So the sort of the feeling from this whole experience of being taken quite violently into custody and then detained and then interrogated, the feeling resulted that it's really a feeling that they wanted to instill, that this is dangerous, this is scary, you can get physically hurt, and when your body is involved, then you're like your brain starts to sort of process it in a different way, that the cost of going out in the street becomes a completely different cost than before. So by doing that back in 2011, they completely phased out a whole generation of peaceful protesters who were not expecting to be treated physically in the street. And then a few years, it took Navalny a few years to build a new base of protesters who did not experience that and who were ready to protest in bigger numbers. And that was crushed, I guess, last year when Navalny returned to Russia and was arrested. There was big protests, mainly young people, new crowd. And yeah, also in some cities like St. Petersburg, very violently dispersed. In Moscow, they used a different tactic. They photographed everyone and then fined them or interrogated them. And the thing that happened with that new wave of protests is that when Navalny was jailed, and he was already in jail, and the war in Ukraine broke out, we saw that this new crowd was really rallied around his cause, and his organization was completely crushed by that moment. And we didn't see nearly the numbers of protesters in the streets protesting the war in Ukraine that Navalny was able to gather for his cause. So we see that the movement was really personalistic, centered around his charisma and his organization, which still functions, but that's the thing, and just the general feeling of powerlessness, has been instilled on even on the active part of the population in big cities. It plays a big role in it. Is that there is no sense of support, of community, that if we come out in big numbers, I think they destroyed that. They destroyed that feeling of togetherness. And it's not only about protests, it's it's a general thing about Russian society. Like I keep thinking about that Margaret Thatcher's quote, there's no such thing as society. I've been thinking about it in the past few days, just by like watching what the different ways the Russian society reacts to the war. There's really everybody retired to their own private solutions, us included. Actually, I'm not saying we're any different from that. We all fled because we felt really powerless to change anything while inside of Russia, and felt really threatened to end up in a much scarier place if we don't leave anytime soon. So yeah, right now the prospect of people taking to the streets is really minute. They've forbidden any kind of tools for organizing, for people to organize themselves. So right now it can break out protests can break out in completely different ways. We don't know how it's going to be, but there's a possibility for a different type of protest, maybe grassroots root protests, or maybe some kind of protests inspired by warring factions within the government, if the unity within the government is destroyed. So yeah, we're yet to see what's going to happen to the protests in Russia.
Yes. Yeah, just to add to that, I think the same. And but you know what is really interesting? What came to my mind? What Dmitry said about why the Russian police was not so hard, and the Belarusian police was so hard. Before the elections, it was. I mean, the elections in Belarus were on August 9th, the 9th. But before the election in July, people took it already on the street. You know, they were like, the biggest protest was like 60,000 people went in Minsk on the street and gathered together in a park, or like not in a park, but in a square in a park for a concert. And there was Tikhanovskaya and there was Kolesnikova, and they had a speech and everything. And when I was watching these pictures, I was like really, and also my parents, and especially my father, he was like, why this is happening? I mean, where is the special police? Why they're not doing anything? Not because they were wanting them to do them. No, of course not. But to think like, why is he allowing that? Because normally you would think of a dictator to send the riot police in, but these gatherings were allowed. And of course, if you then see the 9th of August, it was this perversion, like he was sitting there watching it and thinking, okay, you go on the streets now, you go give your vote, you think you have some vote now, then after that you go on the streets, and then I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna teach you a lesson, who is the boss here, and then I'm gonna break you. Because they were so well prepared in the whole city. The police, they knew in every Belarusian city, they knew which streets to block, where to find them, and they were it was a whole army, and of course there are maybe some little evidence that maybe some, how do you call them, this not paid soldiers were also there from Wagner Group or anything. So it was so well prepared and orchestrated. Yeah, this is the most scary thing. So that's why they were so hard. He already knew what to do with them.
I think
maybe one question more.
There is another question from Merve.
Hi, Pavel. Thank you for the talk. My question is actually following Dimitri's comment.
Can you speak up a bit, Merve, please?
I would like to follow from Dimitri's comments about kind of the reactions of the society, both physically and psychologically, to the protests. So I was wondering, if I'm not wrong, Handbook is from 2021, right?
Yes.
So it took a while, for like at least a year, or did you immediately start working on it after the 2020 protest, or it took a while to start working on this project? Because it's very difficult to, I mean, from our own experience as well, it's quite difficult to start producing a work or start responding to it, to a key moment, to really understand it, to grasp it, and then kind of find ways, different methods of delivering a work around it. So I was just wondering about the reactions about the work. I think it is still a very, very relevant work, although it looks back to 2020. But I also wondering, what was the kind of the process for you to start working on Handbook?
So you mean when exactly I did starting?
Yes, when did you start working on Handbook? Maybe that will be the initial question.
No, it's okay. I see. So I think it was the first idea was end of August, beginning of September. Really like the first idea. Okay, I'm gonna do something about it. I want to show very precisely what they do and how they prepare themselves and what they did, and really started working. Like I named the folder on my laptop and started reading and everything, and this online research and with journalists and everything. It was in October, so I started like beginning mid of October, and then it took me actually pretty 1 year, because the DCP we did in September. In the beginning, in the mid of September, we were finished with the DCP, so it was exactly 1 year, and we knew I have to write a script until the 1st of February, because we want to shoot in April. So we have enough time for editing and for post-production, because the festival, we needed a picture log before the 7th of July. It was the deadline for Doc Leipzig, because we were not aiming for IDFA, but we thought like, okay, we can send it there, but who knows? But we were thinking we would like to have a premiere at Doc Leipzig, at least in Germany. And we thought, okay, that could be possible. So 1st of July was our deadline for picture log, and this is how we structure it. And it was, we were happy that it turned out like this, but it was a busy year, to put it like this.
So which also means that you started working on it after after August right away.
Kind of.
Okay.
So September, October. September was the idea, and October right away, because I knew, okay, actually I should work on a graduation film for film school, but then I said I'm taking a year off, a year off, and doing this film. And I also wanted to do it without the film school, because I told them, hey, I have this idea, and they said like, yeah, but do it in 2 years or something. Do it as a graduation film. It's a good idea. You can develop now, and then next year you shoot somewhere in summer. And I thought like, no, this have to be now, because in 2 years nobody would, maybe everybody would forget about Lukashenko and about this August 2020. I thought like it's need to be done now, and I also couldn't. It makes me, aggressive to work too long on. I had an precise idea, and I was also a bit pissed at my film school because they were like, no, you can do it later and it would be okay. And I thought like, okay, it has to be taught now. So yeah, let's do it in my room and let's do it alone. And yeah, actually.
And then as a last question, did you have a chance to show this in Belarus?
No, not yet. There is a, let me turn the light on, wait a second, because it looks somehow strange with this red face for me. But what was very surprising to me, after IDFA, 3 Belarusian journalists contacted me and said like, hey, thank you for the film, like, can we talk about it? And a woman said like, we are not allowed to make festivals. Our festival was closed 2 years ago, but we have a club with people who love cinema, and we have like underground screenings, and can we have a link from your film so we can watch it? And this really touched me because, as I told before, I was thinking about this film for the Western audience. I thought like, okay, people from Belarus, or maybe even from Russia, they know it, like Dmitry, you know, especially young people, they know it what happened there. But still, for them, they said like, for us, it was an interesting reflection. So I think this touched me the most because I really didn't expect that this film would be important for them in Minsk. I think that was the biggest reward for me because I didn't expect it at all.
Thank you very much, Pavel. And I just want to add something to Dimitri's comment about, you remember you said like you had to stop demonstrating and you had to actually go relocate to another place. I just want to like give an example of the Kurdish political leader Selahattin Demirtas, who is in prison. Before he went to prison, he said to all of his followers, I think it was on Twitter, he said, the most important thing to do now for you is to stay alive. So we went through these processes as well in Turkey where we were frustrated not being able to go outside anymore, but this is a phase. So it's sometimes valuable to rest or to think or to create other things, especially artistic creation is another form. So I just wanted to say we appreciate your comment. We understand. We felt similar things. Of course, different countries, but some similarities are here. Thank you very much, Pavel. Thank you for everyone who participated. Unfortunately, we have to let Pavel go because he's jumping to another meeting now in Berlin. Congratulations for the film, and we wish you the best for the Oberhausen Film Festival. I hope you come back from there with more prizes as well, and we call it a night. Thank you for participating, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for being there and for watching the film. Thank you very much. And yeah, if somebody have more questions, I don't know if my email is on the my contact is on a web page of your festival.
I will write it on the chat now for those who are present, and if you would like to contact Pavel,
if there are more questions, because I would
write to him share. Or you can also send
about
it
the
to
political
us.
situation.
Thank you very much for that offer as well. That's very meaningful.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.